You guys were hit so hard. What's it like in Queens right now?
Well, it reminds me of Hurricane Sandy. I mean, we've been here before, but it's catastrophic on so many levels, the loss of life. And then thinking about those whose basements were underwater during this moment, whose livelihoods were affected by this, who lost everything. It's been such a tough time, not only being the epicenter of the pandemic, but now to face the continuation of climate change right here in the borough of Queens. It's really been a tough time for us.
I want to ask you about both the short and long term. Let me start with what you're facing immediately. What needs to get done in Queens to get back to where you need to be? And are you confident that you as a borough and your citizens will have the money and the help to get there?
Well, I want to thank President Biden. And I'm pretty confident we're going to get this. It's going to take a lot of work, all hands on deck, to ensure that the resources and checks are being put immediately into the hands of those who've been impacted. But also, we have to think about those who are displaced. And, federal assistance and housing vouchers are going to be key in getting people back into permanent housing who will not be able to return to basements.
And of course, we know science tells us this will happen again. And you mentioned that. You touched on that. How do we protect places like Queens? Do you think the infrastructure bill, for example, shows that Washington understands what needed? Or is that just a Band-Aid on a disaster?
Well, let me start with, we got about a $2 billion investment through the city going back a few years ago. And what we recognize is where the places the projects were completed, they did not have the flooding. So it's clear that infrastructure investment is critical. And this is why I can't understand why Senators Joe Manchin and also Sinema are dragging their feet on this infrastructure bill. I request them to come down to Queens and to look into the faces of families who lost not only their belongings, but lost human life. I mean, now is not a time to play politics with people's lives. We need this infrastructure bill passed. We need that $3.5 trillion to come into localities like Queens to ensure that our infrastructure can be upgraded. It's the only way we're going to be able to combat climate change.
You point to the cost in both lives and money. Do you feel that everybody in Queens is accounted for right now, that you have a handle on how many people were lost? But also, do you have a dollar number now? Do you know what the impact of this storm was on Queens?
So we lost over a dozen lives. And, by God's grace, we won't continue to see that number grow. The governor has put that price tag at the moment at somewhere around $50 million in damage. And of course, that number is going to continue to go up as FEMA surveys communities and as the state and local government do that as well. So it could be, I don't want to put a price tag on it, but at the moment, because I would need to get more facts on it. But we know that Hurricane Sandy, for instance, cost this city billions of dollars. And inaction is only going to continue to we're only going to continue to see inflation around these disasters if we do not combat climate change now. The taxpayers are going to be on the loop for this, and we're going to need to continue to build out our infrastructure here to ensure that both we're not here again, and also to ensure that residents feel safe.